So it has been far too long since my last Q&A video, and so I reached out to you guys over on Twitter, over on Instagram, and here on YouTube to see what questions you have for me. So without further ado, let's get straight into them. Actually, before we get onto the questions, first let me know what your thoughts are on this new A-roll filming set. We recently moved apartments and this is my new office, and this space, along with a couple of others, are what you'll be seeing pretty much for all of my A-roll sequences over the next year or so. So let me know what your thoughts are on this particular A-roll set. But with that said, let's get straight into the questions. And this first one is a doozy from over on Twitter. It comes from a user by the name of Paradise Comet. And he asks, you have to live with only one smartphone for your entire life, released from 2019, so this year. Which one will you choose? And this is brutal because I would really struggle using just one smartphone while everyone else gets to upgrade and use whatever is the latest smartphone on the market. But for me, if I had to pick something from this year to use for the rest of my life, then it would most likely be the OnePlus 7T Pro 5G. I think for me, that phone feels like the most future-proofed phone that was released this year in terms of specs, at least on the Android side of things. You've got the 90 Hertz panel, you've got lots of beefy internals, and it has 5G capabilities, which isn't a technology that's quite ready for mainstream just yet, but it will be in the future. And so all of that combined makes it probably the most viable phone to keep using on and on into the future. Next question comes from Justin over on Twitter, and he asks, should I upgrade from the Pixel 3 to the Pixel 4, or should I wait for the Pixel 5? And my gut instinct tells me to tell you that you should wait for the Pixel 5. That said, I'm someone who used the Pixel 3 XL for over a year as my daily driver, and I just recently upgraded to the Pixel 4 XL as my daily driver. And there has been a noticeable improvement in terms of speed and fluidity thanks to that extra 2 GB of RAM and that 90 Hertz panel. So you will notice the upgrade if you do decide to upgrade to the 4, but I would probably say wait until the Pixel 5. Next question comes from Aditya over on Twitter. Apologies if I'm butchering your name there. And he asks, are phone lenses worth buying? And he's referring to obviously the external attachable lenses that you can buy from a variety of different companies these days. And my answer to that is potentially, depending on who's buying them. So if you're someone who owns an older smartphone perhaps, and you only have one main camera sensor on the back, then sure, buying a few detachable lens options that you can attach to your phone will mean that you don't have to spend all this money to upgrade your entire phone just so you can get a wide angle or a telephoto lens on the back of your phone. Alternatively, if you're someone who's after the highest image quality possible, which isn't a lot of people, but there are some people out there who are in that boat, then you're gonna get that out of your main sensor on your smartphone. And while smartphone manufacturers are placing other lens options on the rear of our phones, those other secondary lens options aren't gonna be as good quality as your main sensor. And so it might be worthwhile for someone like you to buy these external lens attachments and then use that on your main sensor so that you're getting the best image quality possible. These next two questions are fairly similar. They come from Omkar and Jehoiakim over on Twitter. They're basically asking, what is my dream phone for 2020? So here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see no notch, no chin, minimal bezels all the way around, but a flat display. To accommodate for that, I'd like to see under display sensors at the top of the phone. I don't mind pop-up mechanisms, so I'd be happy with that as an alternative, but I'd really love to see all of my sensors that are needed under the display at the top of the phone. Realistically, I'd love to see a pretty beefy 4,500 milliamp hour cell inside the phone, but if we can squeeze that up to 5,000 milliamp hours, then that would be amazing. And I'm happy for the phone to be a little bit thicker to accommodate for that. On the front of the phone, I've got to have an OLED display. That is a non-negotiable when it comes to choosing my daily driver smartphone, and I'd love for it to be 120 Hertz, which is what we're tipped to see with the OnePlus 8 Pro next year. Specs wise, if we're talking realistic for next year, then just give me whatever OnePlus is doing with their top end flagship. So that means something like 12 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of internal storage, and obviously the latest Snapdragon processor. Oh, another thing in terms of design, I really like the matte finish on the back of the Pixel 4 lineup. So that in white is what I'd want for this Frankenstein phone, and an accented power button, much like the Pixel lineup as well. Don't really care what color, as long as it's vibrant enough to pop. And then lastly, in terms of cameras, I'd happily take the setup that we have on the iPhone 11 Pro lineup, but with Google's processing on the image side of things and Apple's processing on the video side of things. And if that phone released next year, then I would be a very happy camper. Next question comes from Waldo over on Twitter, and he asks, best to do apps and which one do you use? So I only use one when it comes to the Android side of things, and it's called Ike. I mentioned this app quite a while ago on my channel, but it has a really nice design, some cool animations when you're in the app as well, and it has customizable snooze durations, which is really important for me, and it just does the job of reminding me when I've got to do something really well. This next question comes from Benjamin over on Instagram, and he asks, what's your desk setup look like? So if you want to know what my desk setup looks like, it looks very much the same as that industrial desk setup video that I released back at the start of 2017. Yes, I've moved locations, so the actual industrial vibe has probably gone a little bit because I no longer have that exposed brick wall behind the desk, which is a little bit of a shame. But in terms of the desk setup itself, it's very much the same. So if you want a detailed insight into everything that I use, then have a look at that video. The biggest upgrade being that I now use PC instead of Mac. So that's a big change. But apart from that, in terms of what the desk setup looks like, it looks very much the same as that video. So I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. This next question comes from Malo over on Instagram, and he asks, why do you use the Pixel? It's by far the ugliest phone that I've seen this year. And whilst that may or may not be true, for me, the design and the look of a phone, that really only impacts me in the first week or so of using the phone. And then after that, it becomes about the usability of the phone itself. So mainly the software experience and the speed and the fluidity of the phone itself. And so for me, the software experience that the Pixel phones provide is by far and away my favorite software experience that you can get on any smartphone, hands down. There are a couple of things that I'd change about it, but no other software experience competes in terms of how much I enjoy the software experience on the Pixel phone. So for me, that is why I use Pixel phones and why I choose to, for the most part, stay with them as my daily driver. This next question comes from William over on Instagram, and he says, at the end of 2019, the Essential phone still looks gorgeous. What's your opinion about that? So I still have the Essential phone in-house and see it quite regularly. And in terms of design, it was definitely ahead of its time, although that chin now looks quite outdated compared to most other smartphones on the market. But in terms of performance and specs, it doesn't really hold up. So would I recommend buying it? I don't even know if you can buy it anymore. It's definitely been discontinued. But anyway, if you do see it available for sale, would I recommend you picking it up? Unless it's dirt cheap, probably not, because there's a whole lot more bang for your buck that you can get with pretty much any other smartphone that's been released this year. So I'd probably say don't buy it anymore. This next question is from Kagan over on YouTube, who says, we would love to see your lighting setup. So here's a quick fire look at my lighting setup. Got the Godox SL60W as my key light up here. It's got the softbox and grid attachment on it, which means that the light is focused just in this area alone. Then I've got a mini aperture light over there that's providing a backlight or rim light to the side of my face here. And then behind me is a background light, which is another mini aperture light. And that is just pointed towards the background to add a little bit of texture there. So that is my current lighting setup. This next one is a really interesting one from a user called Exclusive Videos on YouTube, but they ask, people are mostly inclined towards better cameras on these new smartphones. I'm no photogenic, but if you had to choose one smartphone without camera priority, which one would you choose? And hands down, it would be the OnePlus 7T Pro. That phone has everything going for it. It is borderline the smartphone of the year, except for camera performance. It's pretty decent as a camera performer, but definitely not the best. So if I was ignoring camera performance, that would definitely be the phone that I'd go for. There are so many other questions, but I'm going to do a quick fire round to see how many I can get through. You ready? Here we go. What do you think about Realme phones? Open to using them, but I haven't used them yet, but they do look interesting. What do you think of the new Mi smartwatch? Will you do a review on it? Probably not, haven't used it. What is your daily driver phone as of right now? Pixel 4 XL. Would you choose Pixel 4 XL or Note 10 Plus or iPhone 11 Pro Max? Pixel 4 XL for me, but that's because I'm an Android man. If you're iOS, stay with the iPhone 11, obviously. Stock Android or custom UI? Are we calling the Pixel experience a custom UI? If so, custom UI. If not, stock Android. Do you choose Pixel 4 XL or Pixel 3 XL? I've used both, I love both, but if price wasn't a problem, then I would pick the Pixel 4 XL. Pixel series or iPhone series? This is basically an Android versus iOS question. For me, I'm Android, so therefore Pixel series. Best launcher for Android, for me, that would be Launcher version 2. I'm in the pre-alpha, which means it works with Android 10 natively if you have a rooted phone, so Launcher version 2. Favorite cricketer? Stephen Smith. Nova Launcher or Launch Air Launcher? For me, it's easily Launch Air Launcher. What is your main phone? Pixel 4 XL. Did you graduate? Yes, twice. How do you use Google Calendar? I'm pretty sure, like most people, although I do have it synced up with my wife's phone. So we have the same account logged in to both phones, meaning we can see each other's events and whatnot, which is really helpful. And that's one of my favorite features about using Google Calendar. And last question, where do you plan to take your channel in the future? Who knows, the future is long and wide, but one thing's for sure, I don't want to stop making videos. I want to keep making more and more content for you guys. Hopefully we keep growing and I keep doing this. And in the future, I'm still doing this, but who knows what that will look like. But that is it. Now, I know there were some other questions that I didn't get to in this video, so if you still have them, then hit me up down in the comments below and I'll do my best to hang around there for a little while and provide you with some additional answers. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much for watching as always. But aside from that, I will catch you later.